Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead on porch time today, guys. Woke up this morning, it's amazing. It was in the high 60s, low humidity. Humidity was around 40 or 50%, that's low for us. I was like, oh my gosh, I stuck my head out the door at 5 o'clock in the morning. I said, Wanda, oh my gosh, it's cool. So we jumped up and guys, we got busy early this morning. And we still got a little breeze blowing, which I think is good, but it is getting hot. The high today is supposed to be up in the mid 90s, but the heat index will probably be about 103 to 105, what it usually is. But boy, it sure was nice this morning, you know. And that's some about what I want to talk a little bit about. But I want us to think about a title for today, and I want to try to tie this all together. I'm going to use a title from the Bible. And that title comes from Revelations, and it's a very prominent title. The title is, He Who Hath an Ear, Let Him Hear. Now, when the Lord was speaking to the churches there, in the first few books of Revelations there, He was talking to the seven different churches, He would always say, He who hath an ear, let him hear. What the Lord is saying to us at that point is, guys, pay attention. You hear what I'm saying, pay attention to it. And guys, that's the problem today that I'm running into more than anything else. People hear. Oh, they hear just fine. But it goes in right here and comes right out over here and just keeps right on traveling. It doesn't affect them one bit in the world. It makes no difference to them whatsoever. They hear. But they don't hear like the Lord is telling people to hear when He's talking to the churches. He who hath an ear, let him hear. Guys, I want to kind of talk a little bit about events that we're facing now. Over on Patreon, I have talked about several different subjects over there. We've talked about the Gulf Stream in a video. We talked about the jet stream. We've talked about the grand solar minimum here lately. We talk about all the different aspects of things that is taking place in the world right now. And guys, that's where I want to go with this. I want to recap a few things that I talk about over on Patreon to kind of give you a little bit of an idea about things that we talk about over there, because I don't want to keep everybody in the dark, you know, that's not over there. But he who hath an ear, let him hear. NASA just came out this year, and they finally admitted it. We have a video about that. That there is actually going to be a grand solar minimum. And they're saying, I was off just a little bit because I'm not a scientist, okay? I'm the furthest thing from a scientist. And I'm not an astronomer or anything like that. But I was, during the last several years, I have been following sunspots on the sun, trying to determine in my own way when solar cycle 24 ended and solar cycle 25 began. Well, I actually thought that it began back around right after December sometime, solar cycle 25 that is, which would be the beginning of the grand solar minimum. Well, NASA has come out and actually said that in April of 2020, the grand solar minimum has begun. And I'm not going to dispute that, because they have more sophisticated equipment, they know more about what they're looking for than I do. And guys, they have pinpointed it down to April of 2020. The grand solar minimum has begun. And from that point, there's been some comments made by different scientists. It says that from this point forward, you will begin to see massive changes in our weather patterns. And you know, I'm sorry to say, well, my gosh, can it get any different than what it already is? You know, but guys, I want us to look at some of the things that's actually going on around us now. We've had the derecho that came through the central plains up through there, wiped out up close to 10 million acres of food up there, corn and different things, just blew it down, you know, destroyed it. We've got wildfires going crazy up there now, burning up stuff in Montana all up through there, and the weather patterns is just getting crazy. You know, here we're looking at by next week, or this will come out on Tuesday, by the weekend of this week, we have friends and family in Colorado just telling us, Danny, they have us forecasted, it's in the 90s in Colorado, and the next morning it's going to be in the 30s. And right at 40, we're expecting snow. Different people from Kansas says, oh my gosh, this weekend we're going to be expecting snow flurries and different things. And I'm like, it's unheard of in September. This snow coming in can destroy a lot of the wheat crops up through Idaho, all up through that area. Up through there is just a large swath of snow that they're saying is going to be coming down. This polar vortex is going to go all the way, they're saying, down to Nicaragua and the Honduras, down in southern Mexico, all the way down to Central America. And there's a high pressure ridge out there that's going to keep it just from, I mean, we're going to just get the edge of it. We're not going to really get anything really serious out of it. But Arkansas, Missouri, all up through there, some of the temperatures are going to plunge. You know, guys, if this is just the beginning, we've been talking about this for almost 2 to 3 years now, the grand solar minimum, and getting ready for it when it comes. Now, like we talked about over on Patreon, it is not about turning to ice, okay? The grand solar minimum is about weather extremities. For you guys who think that we're going to go into somewhere we're just going to freeze over. Now, granted, there will be a certain part, they're saying around the 45th parallel and up, it could possibly be much more ice than what they've ever had before. And maybe even not even have a growing season. And if they are, it would be so short that if you didn't have a greenhouse or a wapini or something like that, there's no way you'd be able to grow any food. The UN is saying now that we're fixing to be facing global food shortages because of the weather, the things that's coming in with the grand solar minimum. And of course, you know, a lot of that stuff's going to be blamed on us as individuals because we've used too much fossil fuels, and there's going to be lots of things that's going to be blamed on us because of it. But guys, this is a normal cycle that happens once every 400 years, and it's, whether we done anything or not, it was still going to happen. Now, granted, we may have made it a little worse. I'm not going to say that we didn't, but it's definitely something that happens whether we do anything or not. It happened 400 years ago. And there was no automobiles running around then, no plants pumping smoke into the air and all that kind of stuff. So man didn't play a part in it then. So I'm pretty sure that it's just a natural occurrence again. But guys, that's what I'm talking about. Be prepared, because everything is fixing to start changing, and it's changing rapidly. This is highly unusual. This vortex coming down through here. Now, let me explain a little bit about why, and I've found out why this thing is actually going to be able to go all the way down to South Mexico, Honduras, down into that area, is because there is no more Gulf Stream. Now, the Gulf Stream, once again, NASA and the other scientists, NOAA and different places like that are saying that in 2012, that the Gulf Stream, I want to say it was April or May, somewhere around there, I don't remember the exact date, so don't quote me on that. But they're saying that the Gulf Stream actually ended in 2012. It quit flowing. You know how it used to come up and go up inside the Gulf of Mexico, go down around Florida, and go up the East Coast, and then take off and head over toward Britain and up over in that area. Carry some warm waters over there to keep London and England and all those places over there warmer, you know, where they can have a little bit warmer climate. They're saying now that the jet stream comes up around to the North Carolina coastline, and it just stops. It doesn't go anywhere anymore. And it has died. And as a result of that, see, our jet streams used to be controlled by our Gulf Streams. And now that there's no Gulf Stream to help control the jet stream and keep it kind of planed across the United States, used to, I mean, we can get a dip down every so often. I mean, you remember when you used to look at the news and they'd show the front and the jet stream, they would always dip down around Texas and come back up through Mississippi, Alabama, and head back off corner Tennessee, go out back out the, you know, East Coast over there. Everything above it would get colder, and the cold fronts would come down. But down in the south here, it really didn't make it a lot. It didn't get really cold a lot. And, that's because of the Gulf Stream. Now that the Gulf Stream has died, the jet stream has died with it. And now when the polar vortexes from up north off the Arctic Circle blows down south, what happens is there's no jet stream to catch it anymore. and shoot it back up toward the northeast up there, it just keeps plunging, and it just keeps going. And the only thing that stops it is usually a big ridge of high pressure that's formed somewhere over the eastern United States or something, or out in the Atlantic out there, that helps to curve it and get it steered back up toward the northeast up there. Now, they're predicting that California and Washington State and places like that, Nevada and different places, will now see a hotter season this winter than they have in years past. Now, it still will get cold, but it will be warmer, is what they're saying. Now, I'm not a scientist, so I can't prove that. I'm just giving you information of what I've seen. And as a result of that, they have that. That's called a particular anomaly, and I'm not really good with those words, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce them. But when you see a heat ridge build over in the western part of the United States, it's almost a guarantee, according to weather people, that the central and eastern part of the United States is going to be experiencing some really severe cold. When those heat in the northwest builds, the central and northeastern part of the United States, it's almost a guarantee you're going to be colder than normal. So we see that the ridge is building over in the southwest. Now, the crazy thing about this with me is they're saying that as we go into a grand solar minimum, that Alaska could possibly get hotter rather than colder. Now, I can't explain that. It has something to do with the jet stream and the way it's going to work with the Arctic Circle up there. I don't know, guys. I'm not a scientist. I just know what they're showing on their charts. They show the heat building up in that part between Siberia and Alaska over here toward Canada. They show a heat ridge building in there coming from up north and just comes down the west coast, and everything east of that just starts getting extremely cold and colder than normal. And guys, this is things that we have to pay attention to, because if we're going into a grand solar minimum, all the nations of the earth know this, because during a grand solar minimum, there's usually famines, there's usually food shortages. These types of things always happen in grand solar minimums. You don't have to take my word for it. You can go back in history and study history. History shows it. And dynasties and empires, kingdoms, they all collapse during these times because there's no food. And because the weather gets inclement, people begin to die in mass groves from starvation, and all these kind of things start happening. Now, is the one we're headed into now going to be that bad? Probably not in my lifetime, because I'm already 60 years old, and if I live a normal life, I've got 15 years left, if I live a normal life. Hopefully it'll be longer than that, but as I get older and the grand solar minimum begins to progress, see, they've got it going all the way to 2050 before it actually begins to improve any. It's going to actually get worse from between now and 2030, and then from 2030 to 2050 as it really begins. It takes a long time to climb out of it, and it's going to be very, very bad during those years. Now, I will probably pass during some of that period of time, but guys, our children and our grandchildren that will live to be that old will have to live through something we didn't have to live through as a younger generation, and that is a lack of food, colder temperatures, severe weather, all of these types of different things. These kids and grandkids of ours will have to live through this and will have to endure it. That's why it is so important that us, as the older people, try to instill in them values about how to grow your own food, how to survive during inclement weather. Help them to get set up with hand-operated tools. Help them to get set up with wood heat. Learn how to, learn how to grow things. Learn how to survive. Learn how to live without power grid stuff. Learn all of this stuff. Teach it to our kids. The Bible says, "He who hath an ear, let him hear." Don't just sit back and go, "Oh my, this is another one of them conspiracy theory things." God, this is no conspiracy theory. This is actually going to happen. History has proven it. Every 400 years there is a grand solar minimum. There is a solar minimum every 11 years. And there is an eddy minimum, and there is, which we will go into, and the eddy minimum will eventually go into what we call a Maunder minimum, which will be around 2040, I'm thinking, somewhere around in there, to 2050, it would be really, really bad. Massive starvation during that time because of the lack of ability to grow food because of the weather. So this is not a scare tactic, guys. Please understand, I'm not a fearmonger. All I'm doing is telling you guys, prepare, study, do your homework, do what is needed to be done to help your children be able to survive and your grandkids. Be a survivor. Don't be a casualty. Please, take time. And those people, I hear people that go, this is one thing, and you people, if you're listening to me who say this, I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to tell you, I'm just going to say it. Well, I have to work all the time, and I just don't have time. I have to make a paycheck because I got bills to pay. Well, if that's the road you want to take, then you've sealed your fate. But guys, if necessary, and you have a family and you love them, do what you can to downsize, get out of debt, sell something if you got to sell it, because these are all tangible objects. They're all going to go away. When you leave this earth, you're not carrying a U-Haul with you. You're going to leave it. And what is better than to leave knowledge with your children and your grandchildren, and leave tools that they can use, leave a piece of property that they can grow something on, leave with them the knowledge of how to survive in a world where it's not going to be easy to survive in. Take the time to train and to teach your children and your grandchildren. Teach that generation. That's why I make these videos, so that if there's any internet around, my children and my grandchildren can look and say, there's my dad or there's my grandfather. He told us what was coming. I watched his videos on how to grow this. I watched his videos on that. Guys, that's why I do what I do. Because I know what's coming. I have known it since the 1980s what's coming. And I have vigilantly been preparing, not only for myself, but for my family and for my children and my grandchildren, so that they have the knowledge or the ability to be able to go back and pull up something if it's still in the archives and say, what did Dad or what did Grandpa have to say about this? You know, guys, this is what it's all about. He who hath an ear, let him hear. That doesn't mean to just hear it. That means to hear it. And that means to put it to practice. That means to put foot to the road. You know, learn, learn, learn. There's something to be said about education. There's something to be said about book knowledge. But guys, hands-on experience. Used to, when I run my companies, I didn't care what kind of book knowledge you had. I don't care what kind of degree you've got. That didn't mean anything to me. What meant something to me was, do you have any experience? Have you had an opportunity to do anything? Because I don't care what you learned in school. 90% of it's wrong. And that's the fact. Because I've had guys come out and on my jobs that says, well, I went to school, I have a degree in this and that, and I'm a master carpenter. And you put them out there and they go to work, and I'm looking at them going, dude, who taught you what? You don't have a clue about angles. You don't have a clue about pitches or degrees, about foundations, about soil types. I said, you've got the book knowledge, but you don't have any experience. And some of them would let me teach them. And in the teaching, they would say, wow, they didn't tell us this in school. I'm like, no, they don't tell you that in school. I said, that's what I'm talking about. And what happened to apprenticeships? That's probably the biggest mistake our country has ever made, is not having apprenticeships anymore. There is no better education than the education of on-job training. That is the best in the world. And guys, that's the problem with what I'm seeing with farming today. We have so many people just telling farmers what to do that have an education from a degree from some college, is trying to go out and tell a farmer how to grow a garden and how to grow crops and how to make money and how to do this and how to do that. And yeah, the technological side of it, I get that. They need that. But they also need experience from having, most of these people never growed a thing in their life, and they're trying to tell a farmer how to run a multi-million-dollar operation. You know, that is going to be the downfall of this nation. No apprenticeships anymore. I've taken guys on in my companies before that didn't have any experience whatsoever, but was willing to learn and willing to be taught. There's a difference between learning and being taught. The ability to learn is something that has to be learned. You don't just automatically have it. You have to be trained and you have to be taught how to learn. And once you learn how to learn, at that point, you can become very good at what you do. And I've taken guys under my wing before, and I've trained those guys. They're out running their own companies now because they got it. You know, I taught them how to learn. And once you learn how to learn, the rest of it's a piece of cake. You got to get rid of that stubbornness. You got to get rid of that fact that you sit back and go, well, I know what I'm doing. Well, maybe you don't know what you're doing. You ever thought about that? That was the hardest thing in the world for me to ever learn, was when I was trying to get something and some guy said, well, we're going to do it this way or we're going to do it that way. I'm like, why? I don't want to do it that way. He said, you're not willing to learn? And it took me a while to get beyond the stubbornness of thinking that I knew everything about what was going on at that moment. And I would actually learn from the elders, and I'd be like, wow, now I understand. And they go, you're getting it now, ain't you? And I'm like, yeah, I get it. And I learned how to learn. And that's the problem that we're going into with this grand solar minimum. People are reading books. They're studying. They're doing this. They're doing that. They're not putting any hand to the tool. They like, well, I've got my seeds all bought up, and I've got a 20-year, the 30-year can of seeds in there. If an LCE happens, I've got my seed stock. I'm going to plant and I'm going to grow. No, you're going to die. Let me just go ahead and tell you, you're going to die. You will be a casualty. Because that can of seeds is not going to do you one bit of good in the world. Because you don't know how to grow them. You don't have any of those seeds acclimated to your climate. Those seeds probably come from a climate that was even different from yours. You haven't prepared the soil. You don't know anything about soil analysis, about microorganisms, about what it takes to make a soil work. You don't know about the carbons and the nitrogens and all the different things, the pHs that has to be right, the trace minerals that's got to be in it. You don't know any of that stuff because you haven't had any hands-on experience. And maybe you've learned from a book, and maybe you go, well, I have all the book knowledge in the world. I know all about it. I'm going like, well, good. How are we going to raise the pH out there now that everything is shut down and we can't get lime? How are we going to raise that pH? You were taught to go use lime, calcium carbonate. You were taught to do these things. I said, in the natural world, what is calcium carbonate? Where are you going to get this natural alkalinizing agent to put in your soil, to build your soil? If you hadn't had a hands-on experience with an elder teaching you what to do if there's no lime available. See, that's the beauty of having an elder. An elder would look at you and say, you know what, we're going to make a big fire over here and we're going to burn a big pile of brush. And we're going to make it hardwood brush and stuff like that. Not pine, but we're going to use hardwood. And we're going to take the ashes from that hardwood and we're going to go out here and we're going to sprinkle it all over that garden. Because them ashes is going to give us our potash back. It's going to be a trace mineral we put back into the soil. And it's going to have an alkalinizing agent to it. It's going to take the place of our lime and everything out here. Our soil is fixing to be able to grow again. See, without the experience of the elders teaching us how to do those things, guys, those can of seeds on that shelf you got in there, if an LCE happens, ain't going to do you any good if you don't know how to use that soil out there. You're going to go, well, I don't have any potting soil because there's none at the stores. Oh my word. I don't know how to make potting soil. See, if you had an elder sitting around by you, he'd tell you, let's take a walk out in the woods. Let's get us some 5-gallon buckets. Let's go over here to this oak tree grove. And we're going to go over there and we're going to get some leaf mold out from under these oak trees. You're going to run your fingers through there, and as you pull it through the dirt and you pull it up like that, you're going to see the leaf mold. It looks identical to potting soil in a lot of ways. It's real moist, soft, and it makes the best peating, potting stuff and peating stuff that you need to be able to put in your little cups to get your little plants going, because it's done broken down. It's got all the microorganisms in it and stuff like that. And guys, these are the things that you need the elders to teach you. He who hath an ear, let him hear. Don't sit back and think you know it all because you've watched a YouTube video. Go out, work, put your hands in the soil, test those seeds. Don't trust that can that it's going to be 30 years from now it's going to be good. A lot of seeds don't last that long. And if they do, they may not be acclimated to your climate. Grow plants. Save your seeds from year to year. Learn how to save a seed, because if you don't and you plant those seeds and they're gone, you're still going to starve. Do you get it yet? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? This is not a playroom. This is not a place, this is not something that we're going to just automatically just be good at because we want to do it. It takes experience. It takes apprenticeship. It takes learning. It takes putting your hand to the plow like the scripture says and don't look back. Just go and learn. Be willing to listen to others. Be willing to learn from people. Either that or you and your family will perish. And I know that sounds harsh, but sometimes pure reality is the best teacher that there is. Some people have told me I just don't have the motivation. Well, let me tell you something. You'll get the motivation when your stomach starts growling. That's a definite fact. When your gut goes to growling and you get hungry, you'll do anything. There are going to be a lot of people who rob, steal, and kill. You know, I get that. Because they're too sorry to get out and learn now. I mean, I'm a frank speaker. I'm going to tell you like I see it. I'm going to call the shots like I see it. Guys, that's the way it happens. So, what are we taking away from Porch Time today? He who hath an ear, let him hear, let him put his hand to the plow, let him learn. Get your experience. Don't totally depend on a book. Don't totally depend on a YouTube video. Guys, don't depend on that can of seeds. Put your seeds in the ground, plant them, acclimate your seeds, learn how to save your seeds so you can keep going from year to year to year to year. The old adage, don't give a man a fish to keep him alive, but teach him how to fish so that he may live for many days. The same thing goes with gardening and growing your own food, guys. The solar minimum is real. It's going to happen whether you want it to or not. I don't care if you live in the city. I don't care if you live in the country. There are going to be just as many people die in the country as they are in the city, because people have an ear and they're hearing, but they're not hearing. Guys, I hope today I've maybe opened your eyes a little bit. I hope I've maybe made you think about some things about what we're fixing to face as a nation. The derecho, this massive Arctic blast we got coming, the early snow, guys, these are only the beginning. The wildfires, it's only the beginning. The volcanoes, the earthquakes, it's only the beginning, guys. It's going to get real very quick. Thank you, guys, from Deep South Homestead.